You have probably heard of the Avengers before. The highest grossing film franchise of all time is likely to leave an impression. Maybe you've heard of Spider-Man, or Iron Man, or are a fan of comics. Whichever branch you're familiar with, it doesn't matter. Pretty much everyone on the planet has heard of Marvel in some capacity. But what you are less likely to have heard of is the various theme park attractions and lands dedicated to them. This is not because there aren't any or they're in smaller parks. It is because, after the acquisition of Marvel Entertainment in 2009 for around $4 billion, the Walt Disney Company has failed to produce any outstanding or culture-defining rides around them. In this video, I'm going to present my case as to why I think Disney has no idea what to do with Marvel, and it shows. I'm just going to preface this by saying I'm not a fan of Marvel. I've never watched a film from them. In fact, I've never watched a superhero film before in general, so just keep that in mind during this. The first ever Marvel attraction in a Disney park was the Iron Man experience at Hong Kong Disneyland, opening in January 2017. The attraction is a 3D motion simulator ride, which is set a few years after the 2010 New York Stark Expo. Tony invites the visitors aboard the Iron Wing for a tour of Hong Kong. However, Hydra launches an attack on the city, led by Dr. Zola, forcing Tony to don the Iron Man armor and fight the menace alongside the Iron Wing and park guests. The attraction is estimated to have a cost of $100 million. The ride was generally well received, with many praising the immersive theming and the quality of the ride experience, particularly the queue. Some considered it a highlight of the park, despite some comparisons to the Star Tours ride due to its replacement of it. Personally, I don't think it is a very inventive ride, and in 8 years they could have produced something better. With the nature of the ride being a replacement, there is obviously going to be some comparison to what was there before. This ride isn't terrible, and that is generally an achievement, as you will find out. But Star Tours was much more groundbreaking when it debuted in 1987. Disney is often seen as the leading innovator in this industry, therefore debuting 30-year-old ride technology that everyone has seen before and marketing it as a new standout experience is not good enough. Ant-Man and the Wasp Nano Battle is an accelerated shooter dark ride located at Hong Kong Disneyland, which opened in March 2019. The ride uses the same ride system as Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, which closed in August 2017 to make way for the new attraction. The storyline follows a routine trip to the SHIELD Science and Technology Pavilion at Stark Expo, which takes an unexpected turn. Guests join forces with Ant-Man and the Wasp to fight against Zola and his army of Hydra Swarmbots in a heroic battle. The attraction received generally positive reviews, with guests praising its immersive experience and interactive elements. Many found it to be a fun and well-executed ride, particularly appreciating the mix of physical effects, targets, and video screens. However, all these people are wrong because this ride is rubbish. So bad, in fact, that I doubt the research I'm doing is showing me the correct results. The ride is completely generic and contains one moving physical effect, which is a wheel that spins. Not a single target moves or reacts once hit. That is not having high expectations, and is not asking for too much. That is simply just a bad shooter ride that fundamentally misinterprets what makes a good one. Generic isn't even the right word to describe it, because most parks around the world wouldn't even dare to make a ride this bad and expect people to ride it. I'm aware that I haven't watched the films, and I am not the target audience. However, this ride is a cheaply, lazily made embarrassment. This is not the kind of experience people expect from Disney, and with the amount of money people pay to go, they cannot be offering lackluster rides. Even the queue is bad, which most Marvel rides manage to make okay. It's very clear to see that this ride is not just a boring Marvel or Disney ride, it is a terrible theme park attraction overall. Hong Kong Disneyland's Marvel attractions are located in a separate section of Tomorrowland, known as Stark Expo. This area is themed as a showcase of Stark's Industries' technological advancements and is currently unfinished. This has been a slow retheme, with the Iron Man experience first and then Ant-Man and the Wasp Nano Battle. The area also contains the Iron Man Tech Showcase, a meet and greet with Iron Man also containing some suits and armor. You can meet some other Marvel characters at the Expo Assembly Station. Some basic restaurants and shops are present, such as the Starliner Diner and Expo Shop. There was plans originally to replace the Tomorrowland staple Autopia with an Avengers Quinjet ride, however not much is known about it and it has since been cancelled. At D23 2024, Disney announced plans for an upcoming Spider-Man Dark Ride Drop Tower, like Tower of Terror, where Spider-Man fights Dr. Octopus. While this ride is still in development, since the initial announcement, new concept art has been released featuring more Avengers, so who knows how it'll turn out. In addition, the area is rumoured to receive the show Guardians of the Galaxy Awesome Dance-Off, an interactive live show with the Guardians. I believe that this area is boring, however it's not as bad as some other copies as it is not the whole area. Nevertheless, Stark Expo is equally an embarrassment to the company and evidence of Disney leadership's incompetence. I'm not here to criticise the shops and restaurants, even if I believe they too could be improved. I'm also not here to complain about meet and greets, those are fine. My main problem with this land is that the rides, the only draw for the majority of people, are completely pathetic. They both exemplify the downfall of Disney, removing classic, interesting and creative rides for static, cheap and lazy ones. It's completely disappointing and sad as the rides themselves have potential but, for whatever reason, have been severely downgraded. I think the area could be okay if they added at least one incredible, really good ride. This would take capacity and demand away from the worst rides and satisfy the desire for Marvel attractions, making the ones currently there more filler rides and therefore more acceptable. Or, they could just rip them out and start all over. I'd love to be speaking right now telling you how many failures Shanghai Disneyland has to offer. However, they have pretty much nothing. A small pavilion, Marvel Universe, contains a meet and greet with some heroes. Marvel Universe also has a 3D experience where you can experience wearing the Iron Man armour. At the Pepsi E-Stage in Tomorrowland, guests can participate in training alongside Avengers like Iron Man, Black Panther and Captain Marvel in the Avengers Training Initiative show. And, apart from some gift shops, that's it. I don't really have anything to complain about as there's not really anything there, but they are planning to change that. Announced in August 2024, Shanghai Disneyland is planning to bring a Spider-Man roller coaster, an entire Spider-Man themed land, to the park. It seems to be a launched coaster with forward-facing and backwards launches. I can't find much information, but personally I think it looks promising, and I hope that it goes well, because I think that Marvel deserves it at this point. Overall, Shanghai Disneyland has an okay but clearly unfinished and small Marvel area that I don't think is really worth criticising much. The Spider-Man area looks much better in my opinion. I think it's better to create smaller, more specific to certain Marvel character lands than making large, boring areas that appeal to them all. Hopefully it all goes well because I think they might actually do really well in this one. You may be familiar with the classic Disney attraction It's a Small World, but did you know that from January 2025 to June 2025 it featured Marvel? In September 2024, It's a Small World closed in Tokyo Disneyland to make way for this overlay. As it has only been 1 year, we cannot judge if this overlay will return in coming years or be featured anywhere else in the world. I'd guess it may return in Tokyo but not elsewhere. Tokyo Disneyland is not exactly abundant in Marvel attractions. This is likely a conscious decision from the park's leadership, the Oriental Land Company, as there is not many appearances in the parks from Marvel or Star Wars, two notably not classic Disney and distinctly sci-fi franchises. This ride features stylized versions of Marvel heroes, mainly Groot, alongside the classic dolls. Groot is depicted in different outfits and scenarios representative of the country he's in. This is personally my favourite Marvel ride around the world, due to my bias towards the original ride and love for cute things, but I acknowledge that I am not the target demographic or your average Marvel fan. However, it's important to note the guest behaviour of the specific park. I'd guess that Japanese guests aren't exactly the biggest Marvel fans, which explains their absence until now, and they are also famously fond of cute things. This introduction is genius in my opinion, as it introduces a new audience to the characters in a way that they'll enjoy, before maybe building a permanent full-scale ride. The Oriental Land Company is notorious for sparing no expense and building incredible, huge rides, so I'd love to see what they do with Marvel, but I just don't know if they'll do it. Despite being the most popular theme park destination in the world, Walt Disney World has only 2 Marvel attractions. This is entirely due to the licensing agreement with Universal, meaning Disney can't use any Marvel characters featured in Universal Orlando Resort. This leaves them basically with just the Guardians of the Galaxy because it was made after Universal's original deal with Marvel was signed. This is why you can only meet and ride a ride based on them, but Disney made sure you can still buy merch from the rest of Marvel though. In May 2022, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind opened at Epcot. This ride is an enclosed, controlled spinning roller coaster and is notable for featuring the first backwards launch on a Disney coaster. With an estimated cost of $500 million, it is the most expensive roller coaster ever built. The story follows guests as they begin by touring the Galaxarium, a planetarium-like exhibit showcasing Xandar and Earth's galaxies. Suddenly, they are called into action to help the Guardians of the Galaxy stop Esson the Searcher from destroying the galaxy. It is famous for its randomized soundtrack of songs. Outside, you can meet Star-Lord and occasionally the other Guardians, but be warned, they don't look like the original actors. The attraction is presented as the Wonders of Xandar Pavilion, the first otherworld pavilion at Epcot. Much like the pavilions of the World Showcase, it features exhibits and models of the history and culture of the capital of the Nova Empire, Xandar. I believe this doesn't fit the theming of Epcot very well due to, firstly, its location in world discovery, and secondly, its hollow and meaningless interpretation of the nationalism and culture that the World Showcase represents. However, I like the change of direction to specific Marvel film-themed areas with Xandar. The ride itself is relatively well-themed, but I would like to see some physical animatronics. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind has been met with overwhelmingly positive reviews and popularity at Walt Disney World. Guests praised the ride's unique features, including its spinning vehicles, backwards launch, and storytelling. While some find the ride thrilling and intense, many acknowledge its smoothness and overall fun experience. Most complaints include the long waits all day, which could be improved with more trains to increase capacity. This also shows that, unfortunately for Disney, there is a huge demand for Marvel rides in Orlando. Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout is an accelerated drop tower dark ride at Disney's California Adventure at Disneyland Resort. The attraction opened in May 2017 and depicts Rocket recruiting guests to attempt to free the remaining Guardians of the Galaxy from display within the Collector's Fortress. The attraction replaced the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, which closed in January 2017. It is the first Disney attraction based on the Marvel Comics characters in the United States and was incorporated into Avengers Campus in June 2021. It was then surrounded by a layer of markings on the ground that imply a cosmic energy, which resulted when the fortress was transported from across the galaxy to the campus. Since August 2017, the ride runs a seasonal overlay Monsters After Dark, and the story takes place chronologically after the events of Mission Breakout. Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout received generally positive reviews, with many praising its immersive storytelling, unique ride experience, and impressive animatronics, particularly the rocket animatronic. However, some found it too intense or were not fans of the change from Tower of Terror. Personally, I don't mind the change, and I think the ride is one of the better Marvel rides Disney has made. It is generally hard to theme a drop tower, so I think it is very well done, and the queue is really good and detailed. I like the references to Disney park history objects hidden in there. However, I will add, this does not fit the theming of the park in general, which is California, and really disrupts sightlines in the park. The attempt at making it fit by saying it was transported there is a bit sad, but we'll just have to deal with it. At least the ride is pretty good. In June 2021, Disney's California Adventure at the Disneyland Resort opened Web Slingers, a Spider-Man adventure, an interactive screen shooting ride. The story follows guests as they visit the Worldwide Engineering Brigade, Web, during their open house. However, an emergency situation arises, and using Web's latest invention, the Web Slinger vehicle, guests help capture the spider bots that have wreaked havoc on Avengers Campus. The attraction is a blend of physical sets, not really though, and virtual environments. The response to the ride has been mixed, with some praising the interactive experience and others criticizing its length and overall execution. Many guests enjoy the web-slinging technology and the immersive Marvel theming, especially the interaction with Spider-Man and the Spider-Bots. However, some find the ride itself to be too short, feeling more like a high-tech arcade game than a fully realised attraction. In addition, there has also been criticism regarding the web powerband peripherals available for purchase that improve the rider's abilities within the attraction. These are priced at around $60, to beat others in one average Spider-Man ride. Personally, I think that this ride is generic. I mean, it literally uses the same technology as Legoland's Ninjago ride, which opened 5 years earlier. Disney could have done so much more with Spider-Man and a shooter ride, but it's just screens and not even interesting villains to be fighting against. I'm sure Marvel has something much scarier or more dramatic than spider robots. This ride is just wasted potential that would be better if it wasn't basically the only ride in the area. Disney is just assuming that its consumers are stupid and will show up for anything featuring Spider-Man or the company name. Avengers Campus is a Marvel-themed area in Disney's California Adventure at the Disneyland Resort. It replaced a Bugs Land, which closed in September 2018 to make way for the new land. Disney initially announced that Avengers Campus would open in July 2020, but was delayed due to the theme parks being shut down by the COVID-19 pandemic. The area opened in June 2021 and incorporates Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind despite its location slightly outside of it, and Web Slingers, a Spider-Man adventure. On opening day, the shows included Guardians of the Galaxy Awesome Dance Off, a show where you can dance party with the Guardians. This is just man, whatever, and clearly made for children, so I don't really care about it. Doctor Strange, Journey into the Mystic Arts, is a show where Doctor Strange teaches new recruits about ancient artifacts and magic, but it's just pathetic basic magic tricks. Also, The Warriors of Wakanda, where some people dance, but it's really just a lot of spear twirling and yelling. And The Amazing Spider-Man, a stunt show which mixes a live stunt actor and a robot. Now, I have to admit the animatronic is cool, but it is clearly where all the budget went for most of the shows, and it's just kind of a waste for a couple minutes of spotlight. Actually, more like a couple of seconds. You can also clearly see the wires Spider-Man is on, which is fine, but surely there's a better way to do this without breaking the illusion. Lastly, Avengers Assemble, another stunt show featuring Black Widow and Black Panther teaming up against Taskmaster. This show is pretty bad, and not for the reason you think. The stunts are okay, but you literally just cannot see it because the railing is too high, there's trees in the way, and sightlines were just not considered. This is one of the anchor experiences in this land, and you can't watch it. It's just funny to me. You can also, obviously, meet an abundance of Marvel characters throughout the land throughout the day. This is fine, and it would be strange not to have them, but this and the shows is what Disney is trying to market as the main draws to the land. This is almost definitely to try and save money by just having people dressed up instead of building and running a whole ride. But, at least, on opening day, Avengers Campus contained many shows. The same can't be said for today. The Doctor Strange show? Gone. But you can still walk around the empty stage and take photos. The rest of the shows operate sparingly, with only 2 running the day I wrote this, so clearly the entertainment in this land isn't top tier. The rest of Avengers Campus is generally dull, grey and uninteresting. I mean, it's literally a campus. Who wants to escape from reality into a campus? It is just filled with merchandising opportunities, rows on rows of mediocre shops and food. I will admit, however, that Pym's Test Kitchen seems to be interesting for a food place. With a charming practical effect, the quick service restaurant serves mismatched portion sizes to fit with the theme. There is also an expansion planned for Avengers Campus, including Stark Flight Lab, an Iron Man attraction where guests board gyrokinetic pods and experience a simulated flight test using a robotic arm inspired by Tony Stark's inventions and flight sequences. It's just a plainly themed flat ride, and I don't really care. All it adds to the area is, admittedly very necessary, capacity. And Avengers Infinity Defense, a dark ride where guests join the Avengers in a multi-world adventure against King Thanos, travelling through iconic locations like Asgard and Wakanda. The ride will utilise a state-of-the-art ride system similar to the one in Tokyo's Peter Pan's Neverland Adventure. I assume this is a hastily announced ride to try and combat Universal. I don't have very high hopes for this ride or the other one. I'm not very confident that these rides will be good or overly innovative. So basically what we've come to expect from Marvel rides. From everything I've said already, you can clearly tell that I'm not a very big fan of this area. When you come to Disney, a place with a reputation for being an industry leader, a place with heart and soul that is also coincidentally crazy expensive, you want more than plain fun and excitement. Avengers Campus, as a whole, doesn't deliver on giving you an experience worthy of the Disney name. There is no big feeling or overarching message or ahead-of-its-time technology. It's just fun. It's not even that I don't like Marvel. I am aware that the Avengers films are character-focused and message-delivering and still manage to be fun and action-packed. Disney can do better than this. They just don't want to. Isn't it ironic that in an extremely expensive land, based on an extremely successful franchise, there was about 2 good experiences? Avengers Assemble Flight Force is an enclosed steel-launched roller coaster at Walt Disney Studios Park at Disneyland Paris. The ride replaced Rock 'n' Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith, which closed in September 2019 and reopened in July 2022 with new Avengers theming. The story follows Iron Man, Captain Marvel, and guests as they fight a series of warheads from the alien empire of Kree. Avengers Assemble Flight Force received mixed to negative reviews, with many visitors finding the on-ride experience lacking in theming and comfort, especially compared to the highly praised queue and pre-show featuring an Iron Man animatronic. Despite the strong concept, reviewers cited an unfinished feeling, too much blank space, and a rough ride experience as major drawbacks. I honestly really agree with the general feedback on this ride. As a coaster, it's not terrible, and compared to a completely unthemed ride, I guess it's better, but it's very underwhelming when you're being promised a highly themed and action-packed experience and you receive a few screens and projections. In comparison to its predecessor, it's worse in pretty much every way. This ride is what we've come to expect from Disney in this department. Opening in July 2022, Disneyland Paris' Marvel attractions are located in Avengers Campus. This area is very similar to the area located at Disneyland in Anaheim, also featuring Spider-Man Web Adventure. Avengers Assemble Flight Force can also be found here. I'm going to talk a little bit less about this area just because it's almost identical to somewhere I have talked about. The land features restaurants like Stark Factory and Pym's Test Kitchen, minus the good part with the effect, and many merchandise shops. It also includes the Hero Training Center, a pre-booked experience to meet some superheroes. Multiple shows are performed randomly, at times not pre-listed, including Avengers Unite stunt show with Black Widow and Black Panther, The Amazing Spider-Man, Warriors of Wakanda, Guardians of the Galaxy Dance Challenge, and Heroic Welcome, a show where they stand on a balcony and wave at you. This land is maybe the worst Avengers land for a few reasons. Firstly, the only unique experience being Flight Force, which is not very exciting and will not draw overseas visitors, and secondly, it's small and generic and uninteresting, certainly not something I would call world class. So, after having a fairly in-depth look at these various lands and attractions themed to the Avengers, you may agree with me that they are underwhelming and wasted potential. However, you may disagree, and if so, I would love to hear your thoughts. I will hopefully be making a second video on other superhero-themed attractions in other parks around the world and comparing them to what Disney has accomplished so far. So, if you're interested, please stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching, it means a lot to me. Until next time, goodbye!